Imagine, just for a second, a life where your time isn't just about earning a paycheck,
Mm.
where you actually have the freedom, the real choice in how you spend your days, not just your money.
Yeah, it's a powerful idea. And it seems like, after everything the world's been through recently, more people are thinking about that,
Yeah.
building a life they actually love.
Exactly. It shifted priorities for so many. And that vision is really at the heart of the sources we're digging into today.
We're looking at excerpts from How to Not Work Forever, Start Investing and Build a Life You Love.
Right. And the authors, Anna Christina and Natasha Etchman, they come at it from, well, not your typical finance background. Fintech, occupational therapy. It feels really relatable.
Definitely. They kind of learned this by doing it themselves, figuring out the practical steps, the hurdles. It's not abstract theory.
So our mission here is to unpack the really essential stuff from their work. The mindsets, the practical actions you need to build financial security, maybe even reach financial independence.
Getting those tools straight from these sources to understand investing, passive income.
And start building that life you love.
Yes.
So let's jump in. What's the core motivation they talk about? It feels like it goes deeper than just wanting cash.
Oh, it absolutely does. It's fundamentally about freedom, options. They point out this shift, right? Away from maybe older ideas where your whole worth was tied up in your job title or work ethic.
Yeah.
Now, for a lot of people, it's about having control over their time, their one finite life.
And they make this really critical point comparing time and money.
This is huge. Time just disappears, you never get it back. Money, well, you can theoretically always make more. It's not finite in the same way.
So investing becomes a way to buy back time.
That's exactly how they frame it. Your money starts working for you, making more money, so you don't have to constantly trade your precious time for it.
Which leads straight into passive investing.
Right. Think of it like planting a seed. You put it in the ground, maybe water it occasionally, but mostly you let nature do the work over time. Passive investing is similar. You put money into assets, maybe diversified funds, that are designed to grow or generate income over the long haul without you needing to constantly tinker with them. Your money's working, freeing up your time.
But getting started feels like the biggest hurdle for so many people. The sources list those classic excuses, right? I'm not ready yet. I don't have enough money.
I'm terrified of making a mistake. Yeah. And they basically called these out. Often it's just fear talking or, analysis paralysis, getting stuck before you even start.
Tied into that are the myths about investing, like it being the same as gambling.
Which it really isn't. Gambling is pure chance, a roll of the dice. Investing, especially the long-term, diversified kind they advocate, is about calculated risk. It's based on historical trends, economic growth, the actual performance of companies. There's risk, sure, but it's a different beast entirely.
And what about the fear of losing everything? Markets go down, it happens.
It's a valid feeling, but the sources really emphasize it depends on what you invest in and, crucially, when you sell. If you sell in a panic when the market's low, yeah, you lock in that loss.
But if you're diversified.
Exactly. Through something like an ETF, you own tiny bits of hundreds of companies. One company failing isn't going to wipe you out. And the core advice is, if your timeline allows it, just ride out the downturns. Don't crystallize losses by selling low.
And you don't need some super complex strategy from day one.
Not at all. They make a point of saying you can start really simple, maybe even just one broad diversified ETF to get going. Keep it manageable.
Okay, this next point they make is honestly pretty mind-blowing. The power of starting small, but starting early. That $5 a day example.
Isn't it incredible? $5, less than a lot of people spend on coffee without thinking. But they show if you invest just that $5 consistently every single day and get a, say, 7% average annual return over 40 years.
Which is, historically plausible for broad markets long term.
Right. That tiny daily habit could grow to over $364,000. It's all about the compounding, time doing the heavy lifting.
It really hammers home that saying the best time to plant a tree was 100 years ago.
The second best time is now. Exactly. Even if you feel like you're late to the game, starting today is infinitely better than waiting longer. You give your money that crucial time to grow.
And if you don't start, if your money just sits in a bank account, there's another problem.
Inflation, the silent killer of savings. They call it the deflating effect. Prices go up over time, milk, houses, everything. If your cash is just sitting there, it buys less and less each year. Its actual value shrinks.
So investing isn't just about getting rich. It's about protecting what you have from losing value.
At a minimum, yeah. You need your money to at least keep pace with inflation, ideally outgrow it. Otherwise, you're effectively going backwards.
This links directly to opportunity cost. They use those $10 case scenarios, Madison, Gentara, Sasha.
Yeah, table 1.2. It lays it out so clearly. Madison spends the $10 on a great holiday, which has value, sure, but ends with $0 financially from it. Gintara invests it all, skips the immediate fun, and potentially has almost $150 after 40 years.
And Sasha splits it some fun now, some invested for later,
Yeah.
ends up with around 75K.
Right. And the point isn't never have fun. Not at all. They talk about finding a balance, that sweet spot. But it makes you confront the financial cost, the long-term growth you give up when you choose not to invest. It's the opportunity you missed, financially speaking.
Okay, so what's fascinating is the sources are really clear that you don't just leap into investing. You need to build a solid foundation first.
Right. Get your financial house in order. And the absolute cornerstone of that is the emergency fund.
Couldn't agree more. It's paramount. This is your readily accessible cash safety net for when life throws curveballs, you lose your job, the car breaks down, unexpected medical stuff.
It stops you from having to sell your investments at the worst possible time, right? When the market's down. Exactly. Selling low locks in losses you might otherwise write out. The emergency fund protects your investments from you needing to raid them in desperation. And it also keeps you out of high-interest debt traps like credit cards when emergencies hit.
The general advice is usually 3 to 6 months of living expenses.
That's the rule of thumb, yeah. But the sources rightly say personal finance is personal. It really depends. They contrast Sam, the student living at home with few bills.
He's a much smaller buffer.
Versus Charlie, single income, family of 4, maybe family overseas needing support. Charlie needs a much bigger cushion to cover more potential risks and higher costs. It has to fit your life.
Okay, but here's a common sticking point. Saving for that fund versus paying off existing debt. What comes first?
They suggest a practical middle ground. First, save a small initial emergency fund, maybe $500 or $1,000, just enough to handle tiny hiccups and break the cycle of reaching for a credit card for every little thing.
Some breathing room.
Exactly. Then, turn your full attention to aggressively paying down any high-interest debt, credit cards, personal loans. Once that's gone, circle back and build up the emergency fund to that full 3-6-month target.
And tackling that high-interest debt is framed as basically getting a guaranteed return.
This is such a key insight. If you have debt at, say, 20% interest, paying it off is like earning a guaranteed risk-free 20% return on that money because you're avoiding paying that interest.
Which is often way higher than you could reliably expect from investing, especially in the short term.
Right. Investment returns are uncertain, they fluctuate. That debt interest is a certainty. Plus, the money you save on interest is tax-free. Investment gains usually get taxed, so the maths often strongly favors clearing that nasty debt first.
They even show that scary example of $100 debt at nearly 20%.
Oh yeah, figure 2.1. Compounding monthly, that tiny $100 debt spirals into over $270,000 over 40 years. It's compound interest working against you. Terrifying illustration. Anna even shares a personal story about a loan offer and her mom wisely telling her to shut it down immediately.
The sources also make a distinction between different types of debt.
Yeah, debt used for depreciating assets, things that lose value, like a car or a holiday paid for with a loan. You're paying interest while the thing itself becomes worthless. Versus debt for potentially appreciating assets, like a mortgage for property, which historically might increase in value or provide utility. Still debt, but different dynamics.
Which brings up that classic dilemma. Pay down the mortgage faster or invest extra cash.
And spoiler alert, there's no single right answer. It's a comparison game. You look at your mortgage interest rate versus what you might realistically earn from investing after tax.
So if your mortgage is high, say 6% or more,
And market returns historically average maybe 7-ish% before tax. Paying down that guaranteed 6% plus mortgage debt looks pretty attractive, especially since investment gains are taxed, reducing that potential 7%.
but if your mortgage rate is really low, like 2%,
Then the potential return from investing, even after tax, might look mathematically better, but it's not guaranteed. Mortgage savings are certain, market returns are volatile. Your personal risk tolerance plays a big role.
and you absolutely have to deal with any higher interest debt first.
Always. Tosh also shares her journey selling an investment property and using the money to offset her home loan interest, showing how these are real-world personal decisions based on individual circumstances.
Okay, so foundation built, high interest debt tackled. Now, where does the actual money for investing come from on an ongoing basis?
This is where the two main levers come in, as shown in figure 3.1. You can either decrease your expenses or increase your income, Or ideally, do both.
Decreasing expenses is framed like giving yourself an immediate pay rise, right?
Totally. Every dollar you don't spend is a dollar available to invest. And it's tax-free savings. They show how saving just $27.40 a day adds up to $10,000 a year. It's not insignificant.
And the advice is to target the big expenses first for the most impact.
Yeah, the big three usually. Housing, food, transport. For housing, they suggest things like negotiating your mortgage rate, or maybe, for faster progress, more drastic temporary measures like housemates or moving back home if possible.
Food costs are climbing. They mentioned the milk example.
Right, so they offer loads of practical tips. Meal planning around sales, cooking in bulk, maybe eating less meat, freezing food, entertaining at home instead of eating out, using discount apps, looking for lunch specials, cutting back delivery services. Lots of small wins that add up.
And transport.
Using apps to find cheaper petrol, carpooling, checking rideshare prices before booking, pre-booking parking, just being more mindful about those costs.
Okay, then the other lever, increasing income. Getting a pay rise is highlighted as potentially huge.
Because if your pay isn't keeping up with inflation, they quote that historical average of nearly 5%, your purchasing power is actually shrinking each year. You need raises just to stay level, let alone get ahead.
And they give solid advice on how to ask for one. It's not just about asking nicely.
No, it's about demonstrating your value. Set goals with your manager. Track your achievements against those goals. Use concrete examples like the communications role. My press releases led to X media interviews. Email open rates increased Y%. Website updates improved SEO by Z. Quantify your impact.
Back it up with research on what similar roles pay.
Yes. Use those salary comparison websites they mention. What's thesalary.com, levels.fyi, Glassdoor. Know your market value. Be prepared to negotiate, and maybe consider non-salary benefits too, like extra leave or stock options. Check for opportunities like extra hours or penalty rates if that fits. Anna shares her story of realizing she was underpaid after taking on more responsibility.
They also bring up the idea of talking more openly about salaries.
Which can feel awkward, but they point out it's now legally protected in Australia. The benefits. You learn what's possible, challenge pay gaps, reduce stress, and empower yourself for negotiations. Renee's case study touches on this too.
Beyond the main job, what about side hustles?
Big focus here. The sources mention many wealthy people have multiple income streams. Side hustles bring in extra cash for investing and make you less reliant on one job. Examples range from small gigs like Uber or Airtasker,
Pet sitting, surveys.
to monetizing hobbies like photography or art, or even starting a proper side business.
Pash's own story with at Tash Invests is a prime example.
It really is. Started as a passion project, grew into a significant income source, and helped her build new skills and network. It shows what's possible.
And this links back to passive income streams again.
Right, like digital products or affiliate marketing. They often take effort up front, but can eventually generate income that's less tied to your active working hours.
So all this effort, cutting costs, boosting income, is about minding the gap.
Figure 3.3. That gap is the space between what you earn and what you spend. The bigger the gap, the more money you have free to invest.
And the size of that gap determines your savings rate.
Which is just the percentage of your income you save or invest. They reference folks like Mr. Money Mustache, who show that your savings rate is the biggest driver of how quickly you can reach financial independence. The higher the rate, the faster you get there.
Lauren's case study is a good example of putting this into practice.
Yeah, she uses budgeting buckets and side hustles specifically to increase that gap and funnel more money into investments. It shows it working in the real world.
Okay, so the gap is widened, the money is there. How do you actually do the investing part? Navigating the landscape.
Right. The sources give a good overview. They explain the basic stock markets like the ASX or NYSE, where you buy shares, which are small parts of companies, and brokers, the platforms you use to make those trades.
They mention market ups and downs, figure 4.1.
Emphasizing that volatility is just normal. Trying to perfectly time the market is super difficult, maybe impossible consistently, so the advice is ignore the day-to-day noise, stick to your long-term plan.
And the absolute cornerstone for managing risk, diversification.
Critical. Non-negotiable, really. The ETF box of chocolates analogy is great. Instead of betting everything on one or two individual chocolates, companies, you buy the whole box in ETF and get a little taste of everything. Spreads the risk.
They use Japan's long stagnation as a warning against being too concentrated in one place.
Exactly. Diversified ETFs make it easy and cheap to spread your money across hundreds or thousands of companies, different industries, even different countries, Way easier than trying to buy all those shares individually. Imagine buying tiny bits of the ASX 200 yourself. You'd need a fortune. An ETF lets you do it with maybe $500.
They run through the main asset classes, too.
Briefly, cash for safety short term, bonds for lower risk income, shares for higher potential growth but more volatility, property, which is less liquid and has high costs, and alternatives like crypto or collectibles suggested only for a small part of a portfolio due to higher risk.
But the practical starting point for many is ETFs.
Definitely. They offer that instant diversification, which is so important, especially when you're starting out.
Then you need an actual strategy.
Which should be based on your goals, using SMART goals, your time frame, and your risk tolerance. How much risk can you handle? That helps determine your mix of growth assets, like shares, versus defensive ones, like bonds or cash. But again, keep it simple initially.
And the key strategy they push is dollar cost averaging, DCA, figure 5.2.
This is brilliant for building habits and removing emotion. You invest a fixed amount regularly, say $200 every fortnight, no matter what the market's doing, up, down, sideways, you just keep investing that same amount.
Takes the guesswork out of is now a good time to buy.
Totally. And figure 5.1 shows how badly missing just a few of the market's best days can wreck your returns if you try to time it. DCA avoids that. Plus, when the market is down, your fixed amount buys more shares, which is great for your long-term average cost.
They also explain the two ways you make money. Dividends.
Which are like profit shares, paid out by companies, taxed as income.
And capital growth.
That's the profit you make when you sell your shares for more than you bought them for. That profit is subject to capital gains tax, or CGT, which is often lower if you've held the shares for over a year.
Ethical investing, ESG, gets a mention too.
Investing based on environmental, social, and governance factors. But they wisely advise looking inside the fund to see what companies are actually held, as ethical definitions can vary quite a bit.
And the case studies, like May's and Jessica's, show these strategies in action.
Yeah. May using DCA long-term, Jessica showing how platforms and asset mix might change over time. Real examples. Now, this is where it gets really practical. The sources dive into the nuts and bolts, choosing a platform, understanding fees, dealing with tax, the stuff you actually do.
Picking a broker or platform isn't trivial, because fees can eat into your returns, can't they?
Massively. Brokerage fees every time you buy or sell, maybe ongoing account fees. They suggest aiming for fees under 1% of your investment amount. That example of a $10 fee on a $200 investment, that's 5% gone immediately.
Ouch. Makes small, frequent investments tricky early on.
It can. They acknowledge that sometimes paying a slightly higher percentage fee on tiny initial amounts might just be the cost of learning to get started. The key is starting. But as you invest more, minimizing fees becomes crucial. Use calculators to figure out cost-effective investment frequencies.
They also explain the two main ownership models in Australia. CHESS.
CHESS-sponsored means the shares are legally in your name, you get your own HI. Usually higher minimums like $500, often higher brokerage fees. I think you typically can't buy parts of shares, only whole ones. Think platforms like Perler, SelfWealth, ComSec.
Versus the custodial model.
Here, the broker holds the shares in custody for you, often under one big HIN. Your ownership is indirect. This usually allows much lower minimums, sometimes pennies with micro-investing apps, and often lower fees. You might be able to buy fractional shares, but transferring those shares out to your own name later can be difficult. Think Raise, Spaceship, Perler Micro.
Automation gets a big thumbs up as well.
Huge. Set up automatic transfers from your bank, maybe even automatic investing if your platform offers it like Perler does for Chess. It takes the decision-making and effort out of it, helps you stick to your DCA plan consistently. Both authors found it super helpful personally.
And for DIY investors, they give some specific ETF examples.
Yeah, Table 6.2 lists ticker codes like VAS or IOZ for Aussie shares, BGS or IWLD for international, VAF for bonds. It's a starting point for research. Look up the codes, see what's inside, check you're not doubling up unnecessarily if you buy more than one.
And then taxes, the inevitable.
Yep, gotta pay the piper. Dividends are taxed at your income tax rate, though franking credits in Australia can help offset that. Selling shares for a profit triggers capital gains tax, which is less if you held them over a year. Keep good records.
Anna's tax story is a real cautionary tale here.
It really is. Selling shares for a house deposit pushed her income up unexpectedly, making her ineligible for government benefits like paid parental leave. It highlights how crucial it is to consider the tax impact before you sell, especially large amounts. Maybe get advice.
The sources also flag common investing mistakes.
Things like expecting only smooth sailing upwards, getting overconfident and trying to time the market. Tash mentions her own mistake, betting against the market, and a big one, not talking about money.
Why is staying silent a mistake?
Because it reinforces taboos, stops you learning from others' experiences and mistakes, increases your own stress because you feel isolated, and ultimately disempowers you when it comes to things like negotiating salaries or finding better deals. Renee's case study also mentions regretting selling in a downturn, partly due to lack of discussion. Now, connecting this to the bigger picture, especially for Aussie listeners, superannuation, it's massive for long-term wealth.
Right. It's that money your employer has to contribute 11% currently, plus any extra you put in. And it's already invested. Often people don't even think about how.
The system's complex, sure, but the sources focus on the essentials. First step, make sure you're in a good fund, high-performing, low fees.
Those fees really make a difference over decades, don't they? The Alex example is stark.
Huge difference. A 1% higher fee over 30 years could cost Alex over $63,000 in retirement savings in their example. It compounds just like returns do, but against you. Use comparison tools, check fees carefully. Past performance isn't a guarantee, but fees are a certainty.
What about insurance inside super? Death, TPD, income protection.
It's often included by default, which can be good, but you need to check if the default cover actually suits you. A 23-year-old single person needs different cover than a 40-year-old with kids and a mortgage. Also, be careful switching funds. Your existing cover might lapse, or new cover could be harder or more expensive to get if your health has changed. Maybe get advice here, especially for complex needs.
And adding extra money to super. The tax benefits are a big draw.
Definitely. Concessional contributions, that's pre-tax money like salary sacrifice or employer payments, are only taxed at 15% inside super. That's usually way lower than your normal income tax rate. There's a yearly cap, though, currently $27.05, including employer contributions, going up soon.
And you can add after-tax money, too. Non-concessional.
Yep. That's not tax going in and has a higher cap, currently $110, also going up, plus rules allowing you to bring forward future caps. But there are rules based on your age and how much you already have in super, so always check or get advice before putting large sums in.
They mention ways to boost it, like the First Home Super Saver scheme.
Right, FHSS lets you use super's tax advantages to save for a first home deposit. Spousal contributions are another strategy. Anna used the FHSS scheme herself, and Tash mentions how her appreciation for super grew once she understood the long-term tax benefits, even though accessing it is further away.
Calculators on sites like MoneySmart can help visualize all this. Okay, so this all leads to the ultimate goal, right? Not working forever. What does that actually mean, according to the sources, and how do you get there?
It means reaching a point where your investments can cover your living costs, so work becomes optional, not a necessity. You might live off the income generated, like dividends.
Without touching the original capital.
Right. Or you might sell down small portions of your investments over time, though, that triggers capital gains tax. Or probably a mix of both.
And they give that rule of thumb for figuring out how much is enough for financial independence or FI.
The 25 times rule. You estimate your desired annual expenses in retirement, multiply by 25, and that's roughly the portfolio size you need. So 40K expenses means a $1 million target. 80K expenses, $2 million.
Based on the 4% withdrawal rate idea.
Exactly. The theory is you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio value each year. If the portfolio averages, say, 7% growth long-term, that leaves 3% to keep pace with inflation, meaning your money potentially lasts indefinitely. But it's a guideline, not ironclad. High inflation or bad market sequences can challenge it.
And in Australia, the age pension plays a role later on.
Yes, because it provides a safety net from age 67 currently, it might mean you don't need to fund 100% of your expenses from your own portfolio indefinitely, potentially reducing that 25x target derived purely from personal assets.
Online FI calculators can give a rough idea.
They can, but they often simplify things. For a really personalized number, especially planning for variable expenses, or as a couple, talking to a financial advisor is probably best.
And getting to FI takes time and discipline.
Oh, yeah. Years, usually decades. It's a marathon. Easier if you earn more, or start younger, obviously, but the sources position it as a worthwhile goal for the freedom it brings, regardless of your starting line.
You also need to think about future unknowns if aiming for early FI.
Definitely. Will you want a bigger house later? help kids with education, face unexpected health costs, these might mean your number needs to be higher than just 25 times your current expenses.
The savings rate comes back into play here, too.
Massively. Higher savings rate equals faster path to FI. They reference the idea that your savings rate directly determines how many working years you have left until FI.
How does super fit into retiring before preservation age?
Crucial point. Figure 9.2 touches on this. You can't access super until you're 60 or older, usually. So if you want to stop working at, say, 50, you need enough investments outside super to cover all your living costs from age 50 until you can access super. Your FI plan needs to bridge that gap.
And your investment strategy will likely evolve.
For sure. As you get closer to relying on the portfolio, you'll probably want to reduce risk, maybe shift towards more income-generating assets rather than pure growth.
Finally, they talk about different flavors of FI. It's not just one thing.
Right. There's traditional FI, covering your current spending, lean FI, more frugal, fat FI, a more luxurious lifestyle, and then there's semi-FI.
Which seem to resonate most with the authors.
Yeah, the reflections suggest FI isn't necessarily about stopping work completely, but gaining choice. Semi-FI might involve part-time work you enjoy, passion projects, maybe consulting. It's blending financial security with purpose and activity, not just hitting a number to do nothing. It's about funding the life you want. So wrapping it all up, what does this journey mean for you? We've walked through the key stages from these sources: finding your why, building that essential financial base emergency fund, tackling debt, then finding the money, learning how to invest simply with things like ETFs and DCA, understanding super and tax, and finally getting a handle on what FI means and how to aim for it.
And they leave us with really clear, simple starting steps. It doesn't have to be overwhelming.
Exactly. They boil it down. 1, write down your why and goals. 2, get ready emergency fund started, high interest debt tackled. 3, check your money mindset. 4, decide what to invest in, keep it simple, an ETF maybe. 5, open a brokerage account. 6, buy that first ETF, and boom, congrats, you're an investor.
Just taking that first step seems key.
And facing down the fears, they suggest writing down what's holding you back and asking, okay, what's really the worst that could happen? You can always adjust your strategy. Diversification helps. Losses aren't real until you sell low.
They also emphasize finding that balance, the sweet spot, between saving hard and living life now.
Yeah, it's not about total deprivation. Small changes add up. And remember, living on less now actually reduces the amount you need later for FI because your baseline expenses are lower. That compounds too.
So a final thought to leave you with, building on this deep dive. The sources constantly push for more open conversations about money. Who could you talk to this week? What could you learn? Who could you maybe help?
Think about how just starting those conversations, understanding these concepts, empowers you to make choices that align with the life you actually want. Maybe financial independence isn't just a number, like that semi-fi idea suggests, but it's about the freedom and purpose it unlocks.
And don't forget, resources like Money Smart exist, and financial advisors can provide personalized help when you need it. Some are even mentioned in the source material, like Guideway Wealth. That brings us to the end of our deep dive into the sources from How to Not Work Forever.
A really practical look at building financial security and finding your own path to independence.